Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto had been raised by Kakashi his entire life, and how would raising Naruto change Kakashi's life as well. Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 36, After the Battle. Kakashi heard Naruto, and he tried to move his arm, but he was too close. The boy wasn't moving all that much, so he knew that he had to limit it. He was still 2 feet away and slightly moved his hand. It wasn't much, but he had been aiming for a higher target at any rate. If he had been any closer, he couldn't have been able to move his arm, plus he cut off the flow of chakra to his arm and hand, but that would only lessen the damage. The buildup and the jutsu alone was enough to be fatal if he hit a vital spot. He didn't know why his son was telling him to stop, but he trusted that he had a good reason. So, with the last second, his Chidori hit the young boy in his shoulder. He heard the boy cry out in pain as he grabbed Kakashi's wrist. He was surprised how much strength the boy had in his arms. "I can't let you kill him," the boy said to him, giving him a small smile. "I'm sorry, Zabuza-sama. I'm no longer any use to you," Haku, the man behind him, simply said as Kakashi looked at the boy who was starting to fall. This Haku person still kept a grip on his arm even as he was falling down. He had to admit it was impressive how much willpower the young boy had. Kakashi was finally able to pull his arm free as he grabbed the boy before he fell into the water. There was a groaning sound as the boy was still alive, if only barely. "Dad." Naruto ran over to the body of water. He only got to the edge as he didn't know how the adults were standing on the water like they were. "Naruto," Kakashi said in a tone that demanded an explanation. Naruto heard that tone all the times he got caught with a prank, only now it was more serious. He knew that his father would demand a very good explanation as to why he was told to stop, other than Haku getting in the way. I didn't want him hurt. He's like me, I think," Naruto told him, and Kakashi's head went back a little at that as he looked down at the bleeding boy. "Stupid kid," Zabuza said, still stuck in Kurenai's genjutsu. "Don't say that about him," Naruto yelled out at the man. "Don't you care at all? He lived for you, his only dream was for you. He didn't even have a dream of his own. He said that he was alone and you took him in, you trained him. Don't you care for him at all?" Naruto shouted at the man. He couldn't help but think on his own life. After he had learned that his parents had died and that Kakashi had taken him in, how could this man who had done the same feel nothing at all for the boy? He just didn't understand it. Yes, he knew that Haku had done just moments ago, but isn't that the life of a ninja? You fought your enemies? But Naruto couldn't hate, not after seeing those eyes. He remembered those eyes from the mirror when he was lonely, before he met Hinata. The boy just seemed too much like him to hate, and he couldn't believe that this Zabuza just didn't care, even a little. Look at him, you bastard," Naruto yelled out. "He's there bleeding, broken and dying for you. Everything he's done seems to have been for you and never himself. He thinks he's just a tool." "Ninja are the tools of war, kid," Zabuza said, looking at the boy under him, watching the water turn red from the blood. "Bullshit," Naruto said. "We're people first, damn it. We have feelings, we have hopes, and above all we have dreams." "You have a dream, he told me that much, so does that make you a tool? Is the fact that his only dream in life is for yours make him less human?" "Shut up," the killer said, closing his eyes. He saw all the times he was with Haku, the day he met the starving and cold little boy that was most likely about to die in a day. He took that boy in, and yes, he first saw him as a tool for his own uses. As he trained the boy, he couldn't help but be proud at the boy. His skills were above anyone he had seen. The boy was truly gifted, and adding in that bloodline for ice, he could be nearly unstoppable. If only the boy's heart wasn't so soft. He had spent years training and living with Haku, trying to raise enough money to buy him a security from Hunter Neens and to kill his Kage again. Over all the years he tried to think of the boy as nothing but a tool to be used. But looking at him now, why did he feel this pain in his chest? He had never felt this before, so why now and why with Haku? It didn't make any sense for him to feel this way about a tool. Kakashi, I can't hold him forever, Kurenai said to him. Kakashi looked at the boy and then at the man. He saw something in those eyes that shouldn't be in the eyes of a killer. Then he cast a look at Naruto, and saw the pained look in his son's eyes, and beyond him, he could just start to make out the still forms on the ground behind him, and he felt his own chest tighten at that. This wasn't supposed to happen on this mission. He knew there were dangers, but this wasn't supposed to happen. He suddenly remembered the face of Obito, half crushed in rock. He looked back at Naruto as a silent thing passed between them. Let him go. What? Kurenai shouted. He's nearly out of chakra, and so am I, Kakashi said, closing his eye. Even if he did try something, you'd kill him. He faced Zabuza as their eyes met. Take your soldier and go, there has been enough blood today. My contract is still valid, you know, the man warned Kakashi. I know and will be ready for you, he said back as he picked up Haku. Kurenai couldn't believe this was happening, but Kakashi was the senior-ranked Jonin. She reluctantly let go of her jutsu and the large man walked free. She watched as he slowly went up to Kakashi. She waited to see if he would make a move on them or not. Zabuza just picked up Haku, and without a word a mist shrouded the two of them as they faded away. I hope you know what you did, Kurenai said coldly to him. He didn't say anything as they walked to the shore. As he looked at Naruto, I hope you know as well, Naruto. Naruto knelt down next to Hinata. She looked almost peaceful, but he felt like his heart was breaking. Back when he was a lonely child with no friends, she had been the person to accept him as a friend. And he failed to protect her. He failed, and she was dead because he wasn't strong enough. She came in to help him, and she died along with Sasuke. She shut his eyes, feeling the sting of his tears. I'm sorry, he whispered to her. He had no idea what he was going to say to Neji, to her father, or to Hanabi. He started to pull out the needles to at least clean her up a little. The others watched in silence as Naruto started out and Sakura did the same for Sasuke, seeing him doing it. She too felt her heart breaking. Hinata was a friend of hers, and she couldn't stop looking at the boy she had a crush on lifeless on the ground. Naruto pulled out a needle in her neck and suddenly she jerked. Her eyes snapped open as she gasped for air. Naruto fell back on his ass with a shout, his eyes wide and unbelieving, as did everyone else turn to see the Hyuga girl still alive. Hinata! Naruto shouted out. And Naruto-kun? She said weakly. Her whole body hurt for some reason, and she couldn't really move. Hinata. Naruto quickly moved over to her as he started to pull out the last of the needles. He was so happy that she was still alive. He heard another gasp and Sakura's shriek as he looked over his shoulder at the other boy coughing and Sakura helping him out. He smiled under his mask as he picked up Hinata slightly to him. I guess he couldn't kill them after all, he thought happily, holding Hinata close to him. Hinata was slowly becoming aware of the world around her. The last thing she remembered was a fight with the masked boy, and lots of pain, Naruto holding her hand. She blushed a bit, remembering thinking she was dying and nearly telling Naruto her true feelings. She felt a bit better, but still her body ached in places. She felt her face pressed up against something, and as her eyes focused, she saw orange. It was Naruto's shirt. Naruto is holding me? He's got his arms wrapped around me. She blushed very red as she could almost hear his heart beating in his chest. Hinata-chan, don't ever scare me like that again. I thought I lost you. You have no idea how much you mean to me, he told her gently. That only caused her blush to get even redder as his words hit her. It was also more than she could take and passed out again, only this time with a smile as felt her face against his chest. Hinata-chan? Hinata. Naruto shook her, worried that something was wrong. It was at this time that Kurenai stepped forward. It's okay, she's just passed out. She was so relieved that Hinata was still alive. The little girl was almost like a daughter to her after all this time, and she had seen her grow and get stronger. She was also painfully aware of the young girl's feelings for the masked boy holding her, and she wondered why Hatake had never told his son that she liked him. She would have to ask him later, but right now she was just glad that the two were all right. I wonder why that boy didn't kill them. She wondered softly to herself. I'm not sure myself, but it seems the boy can't kill his heart, Kakashi said in a pleased tone. He was glad that Naruto's instincts were right in the boy. He hadn't been sure, but Naruto always had a way with people. Sasuke-kun, Sakura said as she helped him up. What happened? He asked. Looks like we won, Sakura said to him, not sure what happened. The last thing she knew in the battle was that strange chakra and the killer intent unlike anything she had ever felt before. Then some things happened, and when the mist cleared, he and Hinata looked like they had been killed. Damn, you two are lucky that masked guy didn't kill you too, Kiba said smiling at him. Sasuke grunted as he tried to get up. Sakura tried to help him, but he shrugged her off saying that he was fine. Sakura frowned as she looked sadly at his back as he walked away, but felt Kiba's hand on her shoulder. Don't let it bother you, Sakura, his pride is just hurt and he's not taking it well, he told her. When they gathered everything up, Naruto said that he would carry Hinata to the village they were going. Of course, Kurenai offered, but he flat out refused as he put her on his back and started to carry her along the way. Sakura saw this and she sighed. It looked like Hinata had gotten the boy after all, or at least closer than anyone. She just wished that someone could be like that for her. They walked on to the village, and along the way Hinata woke up slightly. She was wondering what was going on and why it felt like she was moving. She felt something against her chest, and what felt like hands on her legs. She blushed as that registered in her mind, and soon, she realized that she was being carried. With the blonde hair she could see she knew it was Naruto. He was carrying her, and he was touching her legs. She blushed once more but managed to stay awake. She just let herself enjoy the feeling of Naruto's back. She gave a content sigh as she slowly fell asleep being carried by him. Finally, it's good to be back home, Tazuna said looking over his village. Although the other shinobi weren't exactly as thrilled, the place looked like it had once been a prosperous fishing village, but now it looked like it had seen better days. Man, what a dumb, Kiba muttered. Watch it, punk. The old man shouted at him, you should never insult the home of someone when you're a guest, it's bad manners. Besides, one of the reasons I'm building the bridge is to bring back the beauty and pride of my village. Of course, Kurenai said, placing a hand on Kiba's shoulder. You'll have to excuse my student, he's not very good at thinking before speaking. She gave Kiba a look and he flinched a bit under it, knowing that he might get a talking to about learning to watch his mouth. They were led through the village. Looking around as they did, people were wearing very worn clothing, the few stands that were still open had very little to sell and people looked hungry and destitute. Tazuna-san, is this what that Gato man did to your village? Sakura asked the older man, seeing everything. She felt very bad for the people in this village. She had never seen anything close to this, as Konoha was a very prosperous village. The old man nodded, being a bit more serious. Now you see why we need the bridge so much. This used to be a beautiful town before that man came. What you see around you is the results of his work. Everyone looked around and the air was just thick with despair. It was like the soul of the entire village had been ripped out. They went through the town, and it only seemed to get worse as they walked on. Eventually they came to an out-of-the-way area, and they saw a home there. They walked up to it as Tazuna walked through the front door. Tsunami, I'm home, he called out. A young woman with long dark blue hair and an earthly beauty about her came into the room. She looked happy and relieved to see the old man. She ran up to him and threw her arms around him, hugging him tightly. Father, you had been so worried. It's all right, Tsunami, I managed to get some protection from Konoha. Tazuna moved aside as the two genin teams came in. Oh my, are you all right? Tsunami asked, seeing how they were all banged up from the fight. She couldn't believe that children who looked only a few years older than her own son were put into fights. If you have a room we could use to rest up, that would be most appreciated, Kurenai asked her. Of course, this way, she said, leading them all through the small home. On the second floor they were showed a spare room. There wasn't much, and it would get a little cramped with all of them sharing it, but they were tired, and they all needed some rest. Naruto placed Hinata on a small bedroll for her. "So how are you feeling, Hinata-chan?" he asked her. "Be better, although I still feel sore all over," she admitted. Thankfully she had some ointments and other stuff with her that she could put on, although she might have to ask Kurenai or Sakura for help, as it would mean to take her shirt off for someone to get the places on her back, and she didn't want Naruto to do it. Well, the mental image of him doing that made her blush very badly, but she knew she'd faint before it got anywhere anyway. "So, you want me to get you something?" Naruto asked her. I am fine, thanks," she smiled up at him. Then she noticed the sad look in his eyes, and she stopped smiling. One of the things she loved was his eyes. They were so blue and so full of life and joy that she didn't like to see sadness in them. His eyes weren't meant to be sad or full of hurt. "And Naruto-kun, what's wrong?" "It's just that." He trailed off, seeing everyone in the room. He really didn't want to get into this with everyone there. It was just kind of embarrassing, and he knew that Kiba would never let him live it down if he got all sappy. He wanted to tell her how scared he was when he thought that she was dead, and how much she meant to him. She was one of the closest people in his life, and the thought of losing her was terrifying. "Can I tell you later? You know, when we're alone? He wants to be alone with me." She thought as her cheeks started to burn up, but quickly nodded. Kakashi sighed as he put his tired body up against a wall, sitting down. Using that eye of his really was taking it out of him. He is starting to feel the drain to his body, but at least it wasn't too bad. If he had been on his own, he was sure that he would have nothing left. But now he had other things to think about. The Genin would need some more training, and soon. The only problem was that there was no way to train them in anything major, no time for new techniques, but by the looks of them there was something they could learn. "Kurenai," Kakashi said, getting her attention, "how far are your students in their chakra training?" "They're pretty far. They can mold it well enough, although I haven't started on any elemental or shape training. I got them on chakra building exercises to help them expand their supply of chakra, as well as increase their stamina." Kakashi nodded his head. "Good. I take it they've passed the tree walking?" She nodded at him. "Okay, then I think we should try water walking. There's a huge supply of that around here, plus they might need to be able to fight on the water if we're pulled onto it, plus they need more chakra control and supply given how good that boy was." "So, you think they'll be back?" Kurenai surmised, although she wasn't surprised by that. "I mean, that wound you gave that boy looked pretty serious." Kakashi sighed once more, thinking about it. "I missed his heart, but I think I might have hit his lung. There was a lot of blood loss, but the Chidori can also seal off some of the wound from the electricity, but that's a double-edged sword as it burns the inside. The boy was still alive, but he'll need some major medical attention, and if he's strong enough he might live through it, but it could also be touch and go." Kurenai had never really seen Kakashi fight before. During that battle he went from a seemingly lazy jonin and turned into a ninja that had earned his reputation in the ninja world. Everything that Zabuza threw at them, Kakashi just threw it right back at him. Although she wasn't weak, she knew that those two men were stronger than her, and if she had gone up along against Zabuza, it wouldn't have been easy to beat him, that is, if she could have. It was Kakashi's battling that gave her the time to use her genjutsu skills. It wasn't until that moment that she realized how dangerous it was to be overly specialized in one area. She could manipulate two elements like all jonin had to, but the jutsu list for those were only 2 or 3 for each. Kakashi was rumored to have 1,000, and he always brought back them for the village. It was also rumored that besides the Uchiha, Kakashi had put down more jutsus in the Forbidden Scroll than any other ninja. And now, hearing just how much damage that Chidori of his did, and seeing it in action, she realized that under all the false fronts, Kakashi Hatake was one of the most dangerous men she had ever met. She couldn't really read the man, and he was a mystery even though she had known him for years. "Hey, you okay?" Kakashi asked, looking up at her with that lazy expression on his face. Looking at him, she couldn't tell just how many masks the man wore in life, but she decided that now wasn't the time to think on the mystery that was Kakashi. Yes, just planning out the training. Oh, okay, well, I'm going to take a nap. Do me a favor and wake me for dinner? Thanks, he said without waiting for an answer, and picked out a spot on the ground and just seemed to fall asleep just like that. Kurenai just blinked at him, a bit more confused by the man than ever. Gato's hideout. Zabuza stared down at the form of Haku in that bed. His upper torso was bare as the bandages covered it. He could see the blood stains on it as well. The boy was asleep but looked too pale for his own good. When he got back, he ordered the Gato's lackeys to get a doctor. He had just stood there while the doctor worked on the boy. He had already put some new blood into him and closed up the wound as best he could, but the doctor told him the wound was serious. He shoved the doctor out the door, almost throwing him, as he said that the boy might not live. He sat in a chair looking at the pale face of the boy that he had been with for years. "You've made me soft, kid," he silently said to him. "I didn't used to feel this way about anyone. I was Zabuza the demon, the man that killed all his friends and comrades, part of the elite 7 swordsmen of the mist. I'm not supposed to have friends or people close to me. You were just supposed to be a tool for my own ends." Then that loud-mouthed brat had to go and open his stupid mouth, he muttered, thinking back to the blonde-haired boy. He made the killer think of all the times he spends with the boy. Although he never admitted it, he actually liked the boy. His life had always been a lonely one, but Haku actually filled a void in his life that he never even noticed before. The sudden thought of Haku gone actually hurt, something that surprised him. He thought he had killed his heart years ago, but this boy in the bed had snuck his way in without him noticing. He sighed as he looked at the Senbon needle in his hand. He had practically raised the boy, and was the closet he had ever been to someone in all his life. On the one hand, he hated these feelings, he felt weaker for them, and he had left the battlefield instead of fighting to the end. On the other, he felt like if the boy died, a piece of him would die too. He had passed down everything to the boy, all his knowledge, skills, and wisdom. It was strange, as in a way it was like the relationship of a father and son, but he never could remember what that was like. He never had a family, and he didn't know what it felt like. He had been alone all his life. Until he had the boy there, then he hadn't been alone. He sat there lost in his own thoughts and memories, trying to make sense out of the chaos that was warring inside of him. Things had been so easy before this, and now everything seemed completely upside down. Chapter 37, Plans and Preparations. The next morning found the ninja teams rested and nearly ready for action. Although Hinata felt better, her body was still stiff, and even Sasuke was feeling it but didn't want to let it show. Kakashi said he wanted to sleep and a bit more to recover from using his Sharingan, although Kurenai wasn't sure it was because he just wanted to be lazy. She was still having a hard time trying to see through the man when he was putting on an act, or if he was serious or not. So eventually they made their way down to the kitchen. It was a tight fit, but they all managed somehow to find a place at the table. Tsunami had done the best she could for all of them, but with the village in such a poor state, finding enough decent food was hard. A lot of the food that you could buy there was little of it, overpriced, and not in the best condition either. But she never let it show. After all, she had to keep up hope even in the most hopeless of times. That was why her father was building the bridge, to change things for the better. She looked to see the young children were doing their best to eat and not say anything about the food. Although she did wonder how the short one in the mask seemed to be eating with his mask on, the others around him kept looking as well, but you never saw him take off the mask. Then he noticed her little boy, Inari. He was looking down, not looking at the guests. It broke her heart to see her precious little boy like that. Although she was hurting as well, after his biological father had died, it was hard to go on. But then Kaiza came into her life, and she learned to love again. He had been such a great man and a greater father to Inari. Then she lost yet another husband to that man Gato. He took one of the best things out of their life, and made her child watch as well as the village as he tortured and murdered him. She still cried herself to sleep at night when no one was looking. It just hurt so much not to have him around. Sometimes it was easier to ignore the past and the pain with it, but she had loved him so much it was too much to just forget he ever lived. She went back to putting away the dishes so no one would see the tear falling from her face. I'm telling you guys, we're going to make sure that bridge gets built," Naruto proclaimed. After seeing the entire town, the genins were motivated to help this place out. This was the kind of thing that Naruto had hoped he would do, saving people and protecting the innocent. He knew that not all ninja jobs were like that, but that was why he liked this so much. Akamaru barked out something. "Yeah, I agree, boy," Kiba grinned. "This place could use the help." Shino nodded too. Even though our mission is to protect our client, the end result of his work is a good bonus that comes with our work. I must admit that seeing the condition in this village, I can say that letting such a force to run rampant would only spread. Eventually, if he's not stopped, he could bring his practices into the Fire Country, and many others. "So, you want to stop him too, huh?" Kiba smirked. Normally Shino was very logical, and put his emotions aside, but he guessed that even all of the suffering of this village had to get through to his teammate. Shino gave him a pointed look. "When dealing with a cancer, you should cut it out before it spreads, and from what I can see, this Gato person is the definition of a cancer." Kiba gave him a weirded outlook. "Man, that was pretty cold." "Well, he's got the right idea," Naruto smiled. "We protect the old man, and if that Gato jerk shows up, we just kick his ass." "Yeah, and I'm sure the village will be better off," Sakura said. "Hell yeah. We'll kick his ass and any of his followers and any other ninja he has, Shinaro." Inner Sakura shouted out, fisting her hand into the air in Sakura's mind. "Why do you even bother?" Inari said quietly, looking at the table. "Ha, ha." Naruto asked. He had forgotten that the kid was even there. He had been so quiet when they first had met. "You'll all just die anyway," Inari shouted out at them. "No one can beat him, and you'll all just die too. You should just leave." "What the hell do you mean by that?" Kiba shouted at the kid. "Yeah," Naruto shouted back at the boy. "I said you'll all just die. What's not to get?" Inari said. "Like hell." Naruto stood up, slamming his hands onto the table. "What makes you so special?" Inari said, locking his eyes onto Naruto's. "I'm Naruto Hatake," Naruto said proudly. "I'm the son of Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja of Konoha, grandson of the famous White Fang, Tsukumo Hatake. I'm going to be the future Hokage of the village, and make my family proud of who I am. I never give up, I never go back on my word either. That's who I am." "So what?" Inari said back. "Gato will kill you all and even your dad." That was going too far for Naruto. He could take things said about him. He had been doing that all his life. But when people said things about his friends or his family that was going too far, he reached over and grabbed the boy by his collar, and he could see the sudden shock and fear in the boy's eyes. "Don't you ever say anything like that to me again," he growled out. "My dad is one of the best ninjas in the world, and there is no way some weak punk like Gato can hurt him. He had to go and hire an A-class missing nin to do his dirty work, and we sent him running." Although Naruto knew that it hadn't been that easy, and both Kurenai and Kakashi had to go all out just to stay alive against him, but that wasn't the point. When push came to shove, they beat him, that Haku boy, and those two brothers earlier on their way here. No matter what this guy threw at them, they were not backing down from this mission. "Naruto," came the cold command of Kurenai. He looked over at the Jonin as she was giving him a look that told him to put an end to this. Naruto sighed and released the boy, and sat down, glaring at the table, a shadow covering his eyes. Inari ran off somewhere else as Hinata looked at her best friend, worried. She had only rarely seen Naruto act like that, and only when it was in the defense of those close to him. Man, what's with the kid?" Kiba muttered, looking in the direction that Inari ran off to. "Don't let my grandson get to you. It's just hard with what happened." Tazuna sighed, taking a drink. "Why, what happened?" Sakura asked him, but the old man didn't answer. "If this is important, should you tell? But if it's not, then you don't have to," Kurenai told the old man. She could tell from how tense the daughter was and the look on the old man's face that this was a hard subject. Tazuna thought about it and sighed. "It's not a pretty story, but it's how the village lost its hope to Gato. He told them how things had used to be. He spoke of the old days with a light in his eyes. He told of how his daughter had met a good fisherman. He was like life itself, and to Inari he was a hero to the boy. Then the man Gato came and slowly started to put a stranglehold onto the village. The only one that would stand up to him was Kaiza. But Gato's men were too many and they'd beaten him, and had dragged him to be executed in front of the whole village. Inari had watched his father, his hero, being brutalized, and then killed in front of him. After that day all hope in the village died. Gato had taken the best of them, and it had crushed their spirits. Hearing the story, they could only sympathize with them even more. Sakura and Hinata were near tears at the thought of something like this happening. Kiba had his fists clenched tightly into balls as Akamaru let out a small growl at the emotions running in the room. Shino didn't look like he was reacting, but Kiba had known him long enough to pick up on the subtle way he was sitting that he could see that Shino didn't like the sounds of what happened either. Sasuke looked away, although there was a small part that kept thinking back to his clan the night his brother killed them all. He had seen that happen as well. Although the boy having only one parent die was nothing in comparison, Sasuke still knew a bit of what the boy was going through. He had seen the anger and pain in there. The only thing that Inari didn't have was that hatred that Sasuke had in him. The boy's pain had crippled him, while Sasuke knew that his own hatred kept him going. Well, then maybe we should use this moment to help motivate your training then. Everyone looked to see Kakashi resting up against the doorway to the kitchen. He had heard the story himself, and with this he could use it to motivate them a bit more. He just wished that they could do more training than what he had in store for them, but time wasn't on their side. Later, after some asking, Kakashi was able to find the perfect place for their next step of the training. It was good that both students had learned how to walk on trees, but now they needed to take that to the next step. They would have to learn how to fight on water if it was needed, given that they could easily be attacked near it. Also, it would help them to conserve the chakra they use and increase their capacity for it. Maybe even sharpen their fighting skills a bit, but fight now it was one thing at a time. They came to a large river. It was thankfully a gentle one, which was good, as trying this on a raging river wouldn't be the smartest thing. Alright then, since you all know tree walking, we'll be doing the more advanced version of that today, Kakashi said in a happy tone. With this it will improve chakra control as well as increase it as well. Plus, you'll be able to fight on more surfaces. You mean like how you and Kurenai-sensei were when fighting earlier on that lake? Naruto asked. Kakashi nodded, just like that, only this is much more difficult to do. All of you will have to spread out your chakra, but unlike on a tree you can't keep it steady. For a surface like what, where the surface is in constant change, you have to constantly adapt. That sounds kind of hard, Kiba muttered as he remembered how hard the tree walking was. It is a first, Kurenai told them, but with practice you'll eventually get to the point where you'll be able to do it without even thinking. Alright then, let's get this started. Naruto smirked as he started to run for the water. Kakashi sighed, Naruto, just remember to stay in the shallow end at first until you get the hang of it. In fact, that goes for the rest of you. The genin and one ninja dog went to the water to start on their training as Kakashi and Kurenai watched. I wish we had more time, she told the other jonin. Kakashi nodded to Kurenai's point, but it was the best they could do at the moment. I'm more worried about the next battle. If Haku lives he'll be very injured, and we don't know how many more ninja that Gato has hired. Although I don't think there could be more, as someone like Zabuza doesn't come cheap. But we should be prepared in any case. They continued to watch as they gave out certain advice to their students on how to get a better handle on things. Shino and Sasuke were doing fairly well, although Kiba and Naruto were having the most trouble. It was Hinata and Sakura that were doing the best so far, but given they had the best control out of them all, they weren't all that surprised. Both jonin continued on with the training for the entire day, until it was getting late, and by sunset called it a day. Later that night, Hinata had left everyone behind as she made her way to the river that she had seen earlier in the day. She needed to train more. Even though Kurenai and Kakashi had said she was improving, she felt it wasn't enough. She needed to be stronger, and it was time to try and continue on with the training that she had been doing in secret for a while now. Ever since the day she copied down those water jutsu moves from that scroll she had helped Naruto to steal, she had been sneaking in elemental training. She had kept trying to mold water when she could. Sometimes it was after missions and training she would do this. It was very tiring at times, since she had training with her team, D-class missions, and then training with her family in her fighting style. After those times she was so tired, but still she tried to push herself. She even had to sneak in a few soldier pills at times to get through the day, although he was careful not to overdo it. If people found out how hard she was pushing herself, then they might get worried, but some days she did take it easy. But that battle on the bridge she hadn't done much, and she had worried Naruto a lot as well. She had been a bit thankful that they had been so busy that they hadn't had a chance to talk. She was worried about what to say to him. She was so embarrassed about what she had nearly said to him when she had thought that she was dying. But now she wasn't sure if she could admit it a second time. All the old fears and doubts came back to plague her. She pushed those aside. She had to continue her training now, and not focus on her feelings for Naruto. She needed to be stronger this time around, and it was time to learn how. She placed a hand in the water, and could feel how cold it was. She quickly scanned the area with her eyes, and so far, there was no one near her, which was good. The last thing she wanted was someone to catch what she was going to do. She was going to have to train in water, and given the cold she would get sick easily. So, she sighed and started to take off her clothing and placing them neatly on a nearby rock. Hinata wasn't the only one that wanted some extra training that night either. Just out of range of her eyes, Naruto had the same idea as her. Tutu felt like he should have been stronger on that fight. He couldn't even have done any of his wind jutsus in that battle. If he had used the wind armor, then the senbons would have gone off him and hit Sasuke or Hinata. Plus, it was still not perfected as well. He could get it around his hand and arms really good, but when it came to a full body protection it was unstable. Then there was the wind slash, but that too wasn't strong enough. He could hit a person and cut them, but that move was supposed to cut through solid rock, even metal at times. So, after dinner he had ran out to the woods again, only this time for some elemental training. He started off with making shadow clones to help him in this. He told 5 to start with chakra control exercises with running up and down the trees, as 10 were to try using that method he got showed by Asuma once on how to cut a leaf with that kind of chakra. 5 were to keep using wind armor until they were so exhausted that they dispelled from lack of chakra. Another 5 were doing the same with the wind blade too. For him, he was going to try and get his grandfather's sword to start working. Like he had told his dad, when he used the demon's power, he saw the blade turn red, but he wanted to do it on his own. The fox's chakra was hard for him to control, not only the power itself, but he knew that he was a bit out of control too. He looked at the family sword in the moonlight as his clones were training. This sword belonged to a great ninja that, even though he knew the full story, he was still proud of the elder Hatake. He couldn't look down on anyone that didn't abandon their friends. "I promise you, Grandpa, I'll use your blade to make you proud," Naruto thought as he started with a few warm-ups with the blade. After an hour Naruto was out of clones, as they had all tired themselves out of existence. Thankfully they didn't all dispel at the same time, but now he was feeling one of the after effects of it. He decided that he needed a drink, but when he went to get one from a canteen, he found it dry. "Damn it, must have used the last of it up," he muttered to himself. It was a long walk back to the house, and he didn't like going back thirsty. Then he remembered the river they trained on. It looked clean enough, so he figured he might as well get a drink from there. He eventually found it. Although he had gotten turned around a few times, he never was good with directions in the day, and at night it was even worse as it was harder to spot landmarks. But when he heard the sounds of a river, he just followed that. When he got to it, the moon was covered by a cloud, so he eased his way, not wanting to fall in and get wet. He found a few large rocks and the sound was very close, so he got on one of them and reached down over the other side and felt the cold water there. He grinned as he put his canteen down to get it filled when he noticed another sound there on the river. He tensed, wondering if it was those ninjas again or Gato and his people. He stayed still, not even moving to give away his location, waiting for the moon to get back out again. The clouds slowly moved away from the moon, and in its light he paused. His eyes widened at the sight he was looking at. There on the river itself there seemed to be someone who looked like they were dancing. The movements were so fluid and graceful, and from the figure it was definitely a girl, a very well-developed one with a great figure too. He gulped as his mouth was dry. For another reason, it was like a vision before him. She was so amazing. It was also then that he noticed that the girl had no clothing on. He felt a nosebleed starting up, but he couldn't look away. The moonlight showed off parts of her skin, and he could tell that she didn't have anything on. He hadn't seen any of the really naughty parts, but he had seen enough. I shouldn't be staring, should I? He thought to himself, feeling his heart hammering in his chest. I mean, yeah, I looked at my dad's books from time to time, and yeah, I got that sexy jutsu and know all that stuff, but something seems like I should watch this. Oh God, she's just so hot though. He tried not to groan at that thought. He wanted to see her face, to see if she was just as pretty as the rest of her. He wanted to know who this water nymph was. After he gave up on Sakura, he realized that he didn't have his sights set on anyone else, but this girl was just amazing. He never looked at Sakura the same way he was looking at her. Was this girl someone from the village? But then how was she on the water like that? Was she a spirit, or maybe some traveling nin from another village? He had to know, and he got up to talk to her. It was a calculated risk given her lack of clothing, but he really needed to know who she was. He just about opened his mouth when he slipped on some moss that had been on the stone. He yelled out as he crashed fact first into the water. After some thrashing about, he got to his knees and coughed a few times. Sorry about that, I just wanted to know who you were. Naruto blinked a few times, looking up to see no one there. What the? He got up and looked around but couldn't see anyone. It had to have been real, right? He hadn't hallucinated or anything, had he? He looked around for a bit, but found no sign of the mystery girl. He was also feeling very cold now as the water was soaking him. With a sigh and a heavy heart, he made his way back to the house. All the way there he couldn't get that girl out of his mind. He wanted to know so bad. He quickly took a change of clothing and put his wet ones out on a clothes line to dry off, and went to sleep. He was so tired that he fell asleep almost instantly, but his dreams were haunted by that beautiful dancer on the waters. Not long after he had fell asleep, Hinata had made her way back to the home as she nervously dried off a bit and went to sleep as well, hoping that whoever had seen her on that river hadn't gotten a look at her face. She was so embarrassed that someone had caught her. She had quickly hid as soon as she heard the splash and had waited for that person to leave. She groaned, hoping that no one would know of her little embarrassment in the morning. Chapter 38, Calm Before the Storm. The next morning Naruto woke up and went to breakfast, lost in thought. All he could think about was that girl he saw in the water. Hell, he had even dreamed about her last night. She was constantly running through his mind. He had to know who it was. The others were starting to notice how quiet Naruto was all throughout breakfast. Those that knew him well knew that there was something going on with him, but they weren't sure what. Kakashi gave his son a glance. Seeing the look on his face, he was sure that Naruto wasn't angry or anything. He actually looked very deep in thought. Naruto had eaten without saying a word. Hinata had offered to help Tsunami out with the dishes as there was so many of them, it was only proper. She cast a worried look over at Naruto as well. She was worried about him and wondered what had happened to make him so silent. While his friends were trying to figure out how to approach him, the young blonde suddenly looked up at the old bridge builder. Hey, old man. Yeah, what do you want, shorty? Tazuna asked him. Are there any female ninjas in the village or heard of any passing by? The masked genin asked. Huh? Why the hell would you ask that? He asked the boy. 'Cause I think I saw one last night at the river. He told him while everyone stopped to listen in. Although one was rigid from pure shock as Hinata's eyes widened so large that they looked like they would fall out of her head. Her heart was hammering in her chest as last night came rushing back to her. and to the mysterious person that had seen her. But had that person been Naruto all along? Her face was growing very red at the moment, and she felt like she wanted to crawl under a rock and die. "You think you saw a kunoichi?" Kakashi asked him, thinking that maybe Gato did have another ninja up his sleeve. "Yeah, I mean, who else can move on water?" Naruto told him. "Wait, weren't we all supposed to be asleep last night?" Sakura asked, remembering that they all went to bed at roughly the same time. Naruto forgot about his little midnight training session, and seeing the look he was getting from his dad, he knew better than to not lie. Besides, he sucked at lying. It was just a skill he was never very good at when it came to himself. With his pranks he could do it, but when it was to get himself out of trouble, not so much. "I think you better start from the beginning," Kakashi told him in an even tone. Naruto ended up confessing to sneaking out for some extra training. He didn't really go into how much he was training, only he was brushing up on his skills. He got to the point where he had gotten thirsty and had gone for some water, and that's when he saw that girl. She was just dancing on the water, Naruto said in a dreamy-like way, thinking back. "I mean, she was so graceful." "Did you get a good look at her?" Kiba asked, getting more interested in the story now. "Well, I didn't see her face, unfortunately," Naruto said, disappointed about that. "But man, she had one hell of a figure, I mean great legs, hourglass figure that was starting to show, and she was very well developed." "What, was she naked or something?" Kiba laughed at how much he seemed to get. "Oh yes, she was," Naruto grinned behind his mask. This caused several reactions. Kiba's mouth hung open in shock, Kakashi gave out a perverted giggle like he was reading his books, Sakura and Kurenai were the only ones not really amused as Tsunami decided to cover her child's ears from this. The boy was too young to hear this kind of stuff. Tazuna although seemed interested in the story, Shino and Sasuke didn't really have much reaction, but it was Hinata who no one could see, and it was a good thing, she thought. If she wanted to crawl under a rock and die before she really wanted to do it now. "You serious?" Kiba asked him. "Hell yeah," Naruto told his friend, "I mean, she was amazing. I've never seen a girl like her before. I just wish I knew who she was. I can't get her out of my mind." "So then what happened?" Kakashi asked, smirking. "Aya fell into the water," Naruto muttered. "When I came back up, she was gone." There was pure silence in the room at that before Kiba hit Naruto on the head. "What the hell was that for?" Naruto shouted at him. "You idiot, you most likely hit your head, and it was all just a dream," Kiba told him. "There's no way such a pretty girl was a dream," Naruto told him. "Besides, usually the girls in my dreams I can see their faces, so this had to be real." "Yeah, whatever," Kiba said, getting up feeling bored now. "Come on Akamaru, let's go for a walk before training." Everyone else started to get up and leave as well, while Naruto was insisting that it really did happen. Hinata breathed out a sigh of relief at that. She was mortified that Naruto had seen her naked while training last night, but there was a part of her that secretly liked with how much he seemed attracted to her body. But then why didn't he notice her before now? She looked down at the coat she always wore. It was bulky and hid her form. She never was very comfortable with her physical body, thinking she was very plain looking. But then she thought back to just how much Naruto was going on about her, and it made her starting to wonder. Later that day. It had been another long training day for Naruto, more water walking, but the teams were also training and working together as well. Mainly they would be paired into twos from each team and mixed up, so that they could get a decent idea of how each other person fought. After all that and a little side training as well, he was feeling tired. Plus Naruto was still thinking about that girl he had seen last night. He couldn't get that image out of his mind, and it was starting to drive him up the wall. He couldn't think that he had just imagined it like Kiba had said. So lately when he was in the village, he kept looking at the girls, trying to see if they matched what he saw. So far there wasn't any matches, and it had another effects too, mainly girls blushing with how he was looking at them, to others ending up slapping him, thinking he was being a pervert by checking them out for some reason. At any rate, he was tired and parts of his face felt sore too from a few slaps, he was thankful for the mask at this point as they hid the red marks he was feeling on his skin. At any rate, he was just going to the guest room he shared with the male members when he stopped hearing someone crying. He moved silently over to the door and opened it lightly. What Naruto saw was the little boy Inari, who was holding something and crying. Ever since the teams had gotten here, the boy had been a major pain, but at the moment he couldn't help but feel something for the boy. He silently walked up behind the boy. It wasn't hard to with the kid. He looked over the boy's shoulder and noticed it was a picture of him with a man. Both were smiling and looked happy. Naruto had seen all the pictures in the house with a certain figure cut out of them, and he guessed that was the missing person in the photos. "So that's your dad, huh?" Naruto said, scaring Inari. The younger boy jumped and tried to hide the picture, but Naruto was quicker and took it as he looked at it more closely. "Give that back!" Inari yelled at him. "Why? So you can hide it away and pretend he never existed like it seems everyone else in this village has? Shut up, you don't know anything. You come into this country saying you'll change things, but you can't, no one can." Naruto didn't say anything as he went to looking at the picture. "He looks like a good person, you both look really happy in this. Somehow I doubt he would want to see you crying like this." Inari snatched back the photo. "You don't know anything." "You keep saying that, but you're wrong," Naruto said to him as he gave a quick look behind him. He knew that he shouldn't say anything, but the boy needed to know that he did understand him in a way. "You see," Naruto said, looking at the boy, "I know what it's like to lose family." Inari looked at him for a moment. "Your mom?" Inari figured that since Kakashi was his father it would have to be his mother, but he still didn't understand why Naruto thought that he could understand him. Inari's father had been seen as a hero to the village, but then Inari's hero had been murdered right in front of him. "I lost both my birth parents," Naruto said him, and he could see the surprise and confusion in the younger boy's face. "Kakashi adopted me. All I have of my parents are their names, a picture and something else. My mother died giving birth to me, and my father, he died protecting our village. He was looked at as the great hero for our village too." "Yeah, but he died. Heroes don't die," Inari said. "Who says they don't die?" Naruto asked him. "In my village there is a monument to all the heroes of the village who died. They're mortal just like everyone else, but it's what they do that makes them heroes. My father died protecting our village. He stood up against a monster that was attacking our village, and only he was the one that could kill it." Naruto knew that he couldn't say exactly what happened, but he could get it as close as he could. It was strange. This was the first he really talked about what his father had done. He talked with Kakashi a few times about it, but usually he only asked what his birth parents had been like. He never really talked about how his father had given up his life and his soul to seal a demon in his own son. It was kind of sad, since even in death Naruto would never know his father, as Minato's soul was forever in the Shinigami's stomach. In a way it was like laying down a weight that he hadn't even known had been on his shoulders. "My father did die, but what he did lasts forever. If he hadn't done what he had done, my village wouldn't even be here. His actions saved many lives, and my village will continue to live on because of it too. That's what makes a hero sometime. It's the sacrifices that a hero makes for those that he loves, those that are important to him even in the face of death. Your father died for his village. The only thing that's different is that the village let him die for nothing. Your father acted like a hero, and this place threw him away like he meant nothing." Naruto said seriously, and Inari looked up at him as though he had been hit across the face. "He must have loved you. He fought for you, your mom, your grandfather, and for everyone in this village, but what pisses me off is how this whole village just let it be for nothing. He gave everything for this village, and they gave nothing back. But you know what? I may not know him, but I won't let his sacrifice be for nothing, neither will anyone else who's with me." Inari didn't say anything as he just looked at the picture of his father. Naruto turned around to go out of the room but stopped for a brief moment. Maybe it's time to stop being a crybaby and start fighting back. Naruto decided to get some air after his talk with Inari, so he went to the roof. But he was surprised to find someone already there. sitting on the top looking over the water as the sun was setting. He walked over to the person and sat down gently. "Hey there Hinata-chan," he said quietly. The girl nearly jumped surprised. "Oh, Naruto-kun, I didn't notice you." Well, it has been a bit busy lately," he grinned at her as he looked back to the setting sun. "It's kind of nice." Hinata gave a small smile and nodded as she looked at the setting sun. "You remember that time we sat on your porch when we were kids? I think it was after your birthday, and we were drinking something that your mom made," Naruto said, all of a sudden remembering that day. They sat just like they are now, only drinking as they watched the sun set that day. Hinata thought back and smiled at the memory. She too remembered that day. Those were simpler times back when her mother was still alive, and she and Naruto played together nearly every day, and went to school together. She missed those days, and most of all she missed how they had been together all those times. Ever since they were put on Genin teams she hadn't seen as much of him. In fact, this mission they were on was the most they had spent together in a very long time. "I was thinking," Naruto said, getting Hinata's attention, "things aren't the same as we were before we made Genin. I know my dad and the other adults told me the differences in how ninja missions were, but until I thought you were dead the reality never set in. I thought I lost you, and it really hurt." Naruto looked at the setting sun, lost in his own thoughts. "All I was thinking about was that I wouldn't see you again, and I kept thinking back to all the great times we had. I remember the first time we met in the park, and you were hiding behind your mom's legs." "In Naruto-kun," Hinata said, embarrassed at that. Naruto chuckled. "Sorry, but it was really funny. I'm glad you're not so shy anymore. But anyways, you're my closet friend I have, and I don't want to lose you, Hinata-chan." Hinata blushed as she smiled a bit, looking at her hands as she fiddled with her fingers. It was nice to hear how much she meant to him, although she did wish she meant a bit more, but for her knowing how important she was made her feel happy. "So, what were you going to say to me earlier?" Naruto asked her, remembering when he had thought she was dying. "Back when Haku put all those Senbon needles into you." Hinata nearly jumped as she went wide-eyed and blushed madly red. She had forgotten all about that. She had nearly confessed her true feelings for him, and now he was asking her for what she hadn't finished. She was starting to panic now. She couldn't just tell him how she felt. She knew that he thought of her as his best friend, and it might freak him out. Plus, after all these years she was still so very shy. "Hinata?" he asked, moving his face right in front of hers. They were now mere inches from each other's faces, and Hinata's entire face turned a deep red. "Are you okay?" He placed his hand on her forehead to see if she was running a fever. She did feel a little warm. Hinata, on the other hand, had something snap. She couldn't take it, and the pressure to tell him and not tell him broke. She pulled back, but too much, and went falling. Naruto quickly grabbed her, but her weight pulled him with her. Thankfully they were on a small flat patch of the roof, so they didn't fall over the side. But what happened now was that Hinata had instinctively pulled on Naruto for support. Naruto came forward and landed on top of her, but that wasn't all. Like what happened with Sasuke, Naruto's mouth landed on Hinata's. Both young teens lay there completely shocked. Naruto couldn't believe what he had just done. His mouth, although was covered by his mask, didn't mean that he was technically kissing his best friend. Hinata's mind was nearly gone at this point. For so long she had fantasies of this moment. Of Naruto over her and kissing her just like this. Well, not exactly, but this was the closest she had ever come to living out one of her dreams. She half closed her eyes, wishing that this moment would never stop. Her hands tightened a bit more on his clothing. She was feeling so light-headed and happy at this moment. Naruto finally jerked back, looking down at her shocked and scared. "Oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that." Naruto blinked a few times when Hinata didn't say anything. Hinata-chan, are you okay?" Looking down he could see that Hinata had her eyes closed. She had on a light blush on her cheeks and a smile on her face. She was mumbling something that he couldn't make out as well. He knew that Hinata had fainting spells for the longest time, and a part of him was hoping that she wouldn't get mad at him for accidentally kissing her like that. "Well, this is new," Kakashi said from behind them, making Naruto jump in shock. I came up to get you two and here you are. Since when did you two become an item? We're not, Naruto said, although he was blushing under his mask. I just fell on her. Kakashi had a look on his face that clearly said he didn't believe it. Well, just remember the hints from my books, but nothing with the adult stuff. You two aren't old enough for that, and I'm too young to be a grandfather, and her father will kill you if you tried anything. We're not doing anything, Naruto shouted at him. Kakashi just gave that perverted giggle of his. Oh sure, but you might want to hurry. I don't think Kurenai will enjoy this scene as much as me. You know she feels about Hinata. Naruto paled at the thought of what Kurenai would do to him if she thought he was taking advantage of Hinata like this. He had learned very early on that women were scary when mad, and especially those trained as a ninja, that opened up all kinds of doors. He looked down at Hinata and sighed. He would have to carry her down and try and sneak her into one of the rooms. He really didn't want anyone to notice because he would have to answer a lot of uncomfortable questions. He picked her up bridal style, and he looked down at her peaceful face. He hoped that she wouldn't be pissed at him when she woke up. Then to his surprise she shifted in his arms and buried herself into his chest. He felt himself blush deep red and tried not to think of how soft her lips seemed through his mask and wondered how they felt without it. He shook his head. Bad thoughts. This is Hinata, your friend since you were kids. You do not think of your best friend in that way. At least that's what he kept telling himself while he carried her off the roof. Gato's hideout. Gato wasn't a patient man. He wasn't a lot of things actually, but patience was something he had lacked for a long time. It had been a week, and he was getting sick and tired of his hired ninja playing nursemaid to that little boy of his. He didn't understand why the man was wasting so much time and effort. The boy had barely woken up at all, and with all the money the ninja was spending on doctors and medicine, he was starting to think that this ninja was too expensive. Beside the huge fee he had already partially paid for, the medical bills that Zabuza was putting on his bill to Gato was nearly equal to the second half of the payment that they had agreed to for this job. It was looking like his investment of the ninja wasn't paying off. He walked into the room that Zabuza had taken over since his return a week ago. Gato also walked in with a few of his hired men as well, just in case. What the hell are you still doing here? Gato demanded, seeing the ex-mist ninja at the boy's side. You should have killed that old man days ago, but here you are still caring for this weakling? Zabuza turned his head, and the look he gave Gato made the small man take a small step back, and made his guards slightly reach for their weapons. Although Zabuza's massive sword was leaning against a wall, the man's reputation did warrant them to be careful. Gato recovered himself, and moved to the other side of the bed to keep out of the man's reach. He looked at the still form on the bed in contempt. This is costing me too much money and time. I thought you were some hardcore killer, so why are you babying this failure? Just kill the kid and get rid of him and kill the old man, is that so hard? Zabuza glared at the shorter man. Haku is mine to do with as I please. If he is to die, that will be up to me and not up to you. As for the old man, he's got 2 teams protecting him, and even someone of my skills fighting 2 Jonins isn't easy. Especially when one of them is a legend like me, and I had Haku the last time I faced them, so now I'm at a greater disadvantage. I'll deal with it when I'm good and ready, and when I have it planned out. Then Zabuza stood up as he towered over Gato. Now get the hell out of here before I decided that you're too annoying to keep that tongue of yours. Gato flinched as he quickly walked to his men, and they exited the room. Gato was fuming now. No one talked to him like that. The man was just some pathetic ninja that was on the run, while Gato was on his way up in the world. Scum like Zabuza should know their place in the world. Boss? One of the men asked, seeing their employer's face. It seems that if you want something done right, I'll have to do it another way. Gato said. I hired those ninja to help get rid of that old man when I heard he went to Konoha. But so far it seems that ninja are overrated. I already have that town in the grip of my hand, so maybe it's time to remind them of that. He turned to one of the men. I want you to start hiring to any man that can carry a sword for a special job. Get as many as you can for the usual prices and bring them here. I want the most brutal ones you can get. We're going to bring in an army to that town and wipe those ninja out and the old man as well. Then we'll ensure that the town remembers why they should fear me. Gato then looked to the other man on his other side. I'm going to get more men here, and when I come back we're going to get rid of that trash in there and his boy. I'm tired of this, and he's outlived his usefulness. Right, boss, He-Man said. What they didn't know was that Zabuza was against the door, and he heard every word. His eyes narrowed as it seemed that he now needed new plan before Gato's men came back. He wasn't really too worried about himself, but in the confines of this room he couldn't protect Haku that well. He knew that Haku was still recovering and moving him could be very bad for him, but he had no choice. They couldn't stay here, but where to go? After thinking about it, there was only one way. He hated it, but it looked like he was going to have to swallow his pride, at least for Haku he would. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.